my name is Alexa Valenzuela Robles, and in today's podcast, we are going to be talking and analyzing the film Fresa y Chocolate. So I'm going to be focusing on a few components, those being whom from the film I relate to the most and why, the pros and cons of why having them represent the idea of popular culture and an imagined society, and lastly, I'm going to be describing the role that Diego plays in a socialist society such as Cuba's. So to start off, the film Fresa y Chocolate obviously shows the strict society rules that there is and the roles that are put out in a social society that Cuba has. We see the gender stereotypes and the issues of identity and freedom that people have in Cuba. And through Diego, we see many of these examples and how he goes above them and doesn't let them affect him. Diego is a gay artist living in Cuba in the 1970s, and Diego's role in a society like Cuba's is very important in my opinion. He showed that it's okay to be different and not being afraid to be himself, no matter what other people may think of him. He challenges the normal or the norms in Cuba, and Diego just wasn't like other men that were seen in Cuba. He didn't follow that stereotype that other men did, like having to go to work so they could provide for their family, not having the responsibility of caring for their children or making food at home or making tea. And we see this in many occasions, as when David goes over as a guest and Diego immediately offers tea to him. We see that difference of what a normal masculine figure would do and what they wouldn't do. So I decided to talk about Diego as the person I relate to and connect to the most from the film because of just the way he is. He's bold and he isn't afraid of what others think about him. He isn't ashamed of the person he is, and he's open about who he is. And he believes in his beliefs and values, and he doesn't let anybody affect that. Personally, I think that should be the way to live life. I think that everyone should be not afraid of expressing themselves for who they are. So that's the reason why I chose Diego as the character to speak upon, because I believe in being yourself and not being ashamed of that. So now let's talk about the theories that we are currently discussing in class and that we have been discussing in class in the past, those being the ideas of popular culture and an imagined society. We see the ideas of popular culture through Diego on many different occasions. The idea of Stuart Hall popular culture in comparison to what a government is like and what they should be allowed and not allowed to do, and how Diego doesn't allow the government's ideas into his perspective of how to live life. So tying this back into the theory of an imagined society, we can see the comparison between both, as Diego makes his own society from what he believes in, not from what is the normal to believe in or the expected to believe in. So now let's move on to the readings, the reading of Gender Performance and Power and Knowledge. First of all, in the reading Gender Performance by Judith Butler, we are shown the ideal roles that Cuba has and expecting from their people and the difference in what we see from Diego. So as said by Judith, gender isn't something that an individual is born with or something that an individual is stuck with. Rather, it's something that is free, something that can be acted on, and something that every individual should be able to decide whether or not, whether which side to go to or not. And in the reading of Power and Knowledge by Michael Foucault, we are shown that power is everything, but it is also something that is enacted on, not something that is possessed, and it is diffused on rather than concentrated. We see this in Diego's way of thinking, as he knows what's right from wrong, but he decides not to enact on that. He doesn't go with his right shoulder and like everyone else does. So we also see the discourse between the communists and non-communists and what people are put through because of it. Whether they should think that one side is better than another, or one side is it has to be that side or not. Diego chooses to believe what he wants to, and he doesn't let the government or anyone else change that thinking. But shown in the film, we also see David's way of thinking and his perspective on that. He's much younger than Diego, so a lot of the young in Cuba were taught to be communists and the communist idea. So in the beginning, when both Diego and David first met, it was more of David being a communist spy because he knew that Diego wasn't communist. But then in the end, they became very close friends and they built that relationship. Even if they didn't have the same ideas or the same beliefs and values, they still were able to overcome that feeling and that idea of not being able to like be friends with the other side pretty much. So we see that in both the film, but also The Power of Knowledge by Michael Foucault. So to end this off, I enjoyed watching this film a lot. I think it shows it's okay to be different and it's okay to believe things that aren't the normal to believe. So yeah, that's basically my opinion, and that was today's podcast. Thank you.